industry alike. He finally received a positive response and allocations of forced laborers in October 1944 to start the expansion. But by January, the overall chaos that was engulfing Germany brought construction to a halt. Rothe was not discouraged. Instead, he continued to reiterate the importance of cleaning products to the war effort and promised his plant would be fully operational by the fall of 1945. The disconnect between Rothe's projections and wartime realities could not have been more extreme. Since the summer of 1944, Allied bombing of German cities had been relentless. In the east, the German occupiers hastily evacuated their positions as the Red Army pressed westward. Refugees piled into the Reich, and increasingly Germans themselves were on the move in desperate attempts to escape from bombs and enemy armies. In the west, the Allies steadily gained ground. The German authorities focused on the evacuation of loot and military equipment. Rescued loot, much of it waste, clogged transport routes. Finished products and raw materials piled up in warehouses. The regime forcibly marched columns of half-dead concentration camp prisoners and forced laborers to new strategic destinations on notorious death marches. To relieve the pressures on the war economy, additional labor was needed to unload shipments, declog railways, and distribute and process materials. And yet, the regime systematically murdered its slave labor force. Internally, the SS and Gestapo ramped up their terror, indiscriminately targeting all subversive elements, executing forced laborers, shirkers, deserters, soldiers who had gotten cut off from their regiments, and civilians who had abandoned their posts or whose inefficiency, panic, or disorientation posed obstacles to the war effort. Transportation bottlenecks, infrastructural collapse, breakdown of communication, and provisioning chaos characterized the final months of Hitler's 1,000-year Reich. In the context of rapid implosion, the very notion that recycling cleaning rags would be of utmost strategic importance appears rather strange, if not utterly delusional. Even in early 1945, the language of resource extension and waste reclamation had lost none of its power. To the contrary, in the face of endemic shortages and mass destruction, making something from nothing, or turning waste into a resource, resonated precisely because nothing but waste was available in abundance. Since 1936, waste avoidance and waste reclamation had been central pillars of the Nazi economy, encouraging ordinary citizens to conserve and extend the Reich's resource base at every turn. In the absence of resource-rich colonies, the self-described people without space, Volk ohne Raum, bought into the fantasy of a circular economy that could cycle raw materials through the production process indefinitely, long before wartime shortages necessitated such thinking. Therefore, Rothe was hardly alone as he focused on the hidden value of accumulated garbage. Miracle weapons aside, waste reclamation had become the only language that Germans could employ to redress and reverse the fortunes of war. Until the very end, Nazi authorities freighted tons of metal scrap, airplane junk, broken-down military equipment, rags, old shoes, and textile waste back to the Reich in a futile effort to close the raw material cycle and stopgap the imploding economy through the brutal extraction of labor from the depleted bodies of Jews, concentration camp inmates, and forced laborers. For years, waste materials had been celebrated as the solution to all of Germany's resource problems and raw material shortages. By 1945,